What if everything you needed to lead a wise and virtuous life was already within you? Imagine tapping into the well of knowledge left by one of antiquity's most respected leaders. I'm here to uncover for you the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and philosopher whose reflections and meditations have endured for centuries. Let's dive into the essence of his profound thoughts, distilling them from the rich history they were written in. As we step into our journey through the Meditations of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, translated freshly in the mid-18th century from the original Greek and presented to the English-speaking world by Glasgow's own Robert Foulis and his compatriots, we find more than a simple book. This tome is an invitation, a gateway to the private contemplations of a ruler who sought wisdom and self-improvement amidst the immense pressures of leadership. In this opening segment, where we stand at the threshold of Marcus's reflections, it's important to understand the context. The Meditations isn't just a book, it's a personal journal, a series of writings that were never meant for publication. They were Marcus Aurelius's own tool for self-improvement and philosophical contemplation, notes he wrote to himself while overseeing a vast empire nearly 2 millennia ago. Remember, this is just the beginning, a bibliographic prelude that hints at the wisdom we're about to explore. As we prepare to delve into the emperor's mind, think of it as an archaeological dig into the soul of Marcus Aurelius, where each segment will bring us closer to the heart of his immortal insights into life, virtue, and what it means to be a good human being. So, brace yourselves for a journey back in time to the Stoic mind of a thinker whose conversations with himself have the power to transform the way we see the world and ourselves. With each segment, we'll extract and distill the essence of his meditations to infuse our modern life with ancient wisdom. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the life and musings of one of history's great philosophers and leaders. In the heart of Rome's legacy stands Marcus Aurelius, an emperor whose wisdom outshone the marbled columns of his empire. Let's delve into the profound meditations of this Stoic philosopher king and the life that shaped his enduring thoughts. Born into prestige in 121 AD, during the reign of Emperor Adrian, Marcus Aurelius was a descendant of nobility, the likes of which trace their lineage back to the days of Numa, Rome's legendary second king. Fate ordained him for greatness, his first breath drawing the attention of Emperor Adrian, who fondly nicknamed him Verissimus, the most truthful, witnessing the candid integrity of young Marcus. Marcus was a phoenix that arose from the ashes of personal loss. His father passed too soon, leaving him in the care of his grandfather. From music to Greek, geometry to the persuasive art of rhetoric, Marcus's childhood was an ornate tapestry of learning. However, his soul ignited not in the melodic strings of the lyre, nor in geometric shapes, but in the blazing forge of Stoicism, an everlasting fire kindled by the masters Sextus of Chaeronea, Junius Rusticus, and others. Such wise men Marcus held in the highest esteem, repaying their teachings not just with gold and status, but with the treasure of perpetual admiration and humility. These early mentors sculpted his character, fostering a dedication to justice, meekness, and divine harmony, virtues that permeated his life and set the pillars for his later meditations. Despite the luxurious embrace of wealth, he chose Stoicism as his compass, living with a simplicity and resilience that went counter to his imperial inheritance. This contrast was stark, and Marcus's very essence became a mantra of Stoic discipline. Marcus's rise was meteoric. At only 6, he donned the equestrian rank. By 8, he was among Mars's priests. With every step toward adulthood, Marcus proved to be as much a child of duty as a child of Rome, handling responsibilities with a precocious grace that belied his age. His life's chapters were scribbled in the ink of destiny. At 18, adopted by the Aurelian family, he took the name Marcus Aurelius. And when Adrian sought a successor, Marcus, already chosen in heart, was passed over due to youth in favor of Antoninus Pius, with one condition, to adopt Marcus and Lucius Verus as his heirs. The fabric of Marcus's life further entwined with imperial threads when he wed Faustina, a match less celestial and more earthly. She bore him children and alongside honors that reached the zenith in the Roman cosmos, a testament to his reverence and merit. By 161 AD, tragedy's hand relinquished Antoninus Pius from the mortal coil, and Marcus, with Verus by his side, ascended as co-emperors, their rule heralded by grand funerals and surgent oath. The empire, with its conflicts and warring tales, awaited their guidance. Despite Marcus's inherent longing for peace and enlightenment, the world around him was a stage of strife, prompting philosophers, prophets, and laymen alike to seek his wisdom on matters from divine to mundane. Persecutions arose, unrest thrummed, and nature itself seemed to revolt with earth-shuddering omens. And yet, despite dark whispers and sorrows, Marcus's rule was tempered by justice, mercy, and a refusal to bow to the casual cruelties of indiscriminate persecution. Letters bearing his seal spoke of a leader who would rather see a Christian acquitted than persecuted for faith alone, a pioneer of tolerance amidst antiquity's harshest climes. Marcus Aurelius, the man, the emperor, the philosopher, wove a legacy that has echoed through time, a testament to the power of the Stoic mind and a life sincerely lived. As his meditations unfurl, each word is a reflection of a soul sculpted by virtue, an emperor who placed wisdom above the trappings of power and sought serenity in the eye of history's storm. In the segment we find ourselves in, we dive into the fervent times of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a time when tumult was brewing on every side of the Roman Empire. His role as both a leader in peacetime and war vividly comes to light here. Starting off, we find Antoninus, the respectful title of Marcus Aurelius, at the helm dealing with an uprising of the Germanic tribes. Remarkably, his keen judgment shines through as he recognizes the competence and valor in Pertinax, an individual who would later ascend to the imperial throne himself. Antoninus's trust in him during the German campaigns was not misplaced, as the Roman forces triumphed over the spirited attempts of the Germans. But, even after a victory, true leadership is tested not only on the battlefield, but also within one's own ranks. When his soldiers clamored for a pay raise after their hard-fought success, Antoninus stood firm, wisely refusing them. His reason was profound, as he pointed out the unfairness it would represent to their fellow citizens, for whom he, as emperor, was responsible before the divine. While the empire faced external threats, internal strife was not absent. The year following saw the formidable Quadi and Marcomanni wage war, and it coincided with a devastating plague that held Italy in its grip. Despite this, Antoninus soldiered on with his typical piety, praying to the gods before confronting the threat. The campaign was arduous, but ended with Antoninus's victory, albeit cast under the shadow of tragedy, as his co-emperor Verus died en route to Rome under suspicious circumstances. Trouble also brewed far from the battlefield, in the quiet, often desperate prayers of the beleaguered Christian population. Their faith was not widely accepted in Rome, and the emperor's response to queries on handling Christian prisoners reveals a much-debated aspect of his reign. Antoninus decreed that only those who admitted to heinous crimes, commonly and falsely attributed to Christians, should face execution. This ambiguous edict unfortunately led to severe persecution in some provinces, but it's believed that his command aimed at justice and not at religious persecution. The warfare with the Marcomanni and Quadi was a revealing time for Marcus Aurelius. A disastrous ambush led to a desperate situation for his troops, trapped and suffering in dire straits with little hope for survival. Here, the narrative takes a turn into the miraculous. As the Romans thirsted, seemingly doomed, a sudden storm offered them salvation, while simultaneously striking terror into their adversaries. This event was interpreted differently by pagans and Christians alike, but ultimately it led to the emperor's army breaking free and winning a decisive, albeit grueling, victory. In peacetime, Antoninus was no less diligent. With the same perseverance he showed in war, he focused on the well-being of his subjects through law reform and the appointment of capable, honorable officials. His dedication was as unwavering as his humility was deep. He shunned excessive titles and adulation, considered unfit for true service to the state. The narrative pauses on a dark note of renewed conflict, as the Marcomanni, exploiting a weakened Rome, break previously agreed peace terms. Marcus Aurelius, facing a drained treasury, came up with creative solutions, selling palace valuables to fund his military needs, even resorting to enlisting gladiators into his legions. Amidst the chronicle of warfare and political intrigue, the emperor's personal life makes an impactful appearance. The death of his young son Verus was felt deeply, Yet he bore the loss with his characteristic stoicism and continued to tend to the needs of the empire without missing a step. Finally, we touch upon Cassius's betrayal and Antoninus's letter that reveals much about the emperor's thoughtful and measured approach to potential conspiracies and his abiding trust in the strength of good governance and loyalty. It is in these poignant reflections we see not just an emperor, but a philosopher at heart. In the heart of conflict, amidst the swirling dust of treason and turmoil, we find ourselves in segment 4 of part 1 of a tale not just of an emperor, but of a philosopher king, Marcus Aurelius, his wisdom and his world. Today we delve into the intricate dynamics of power and mercy, as Marcus navigates the treachery of a usurper and the counsel of his closest confidants. Here is a man not spurred by vengeance, but guided by a vision of clemency, who faced the treachery of Avidius Cassius. With Cassius declaring himself emperor, Rome ground its teeth in nervous anticipation. Marcus's mastery was not just in leading armies, but in steering souls, and he made his stance clear. Rather than seizing Cassius's wealth, he forfeited it to the city and caressed the Senate's concerns with a letter that oozed both strategy and empathy. Faustina, the emperor's wife, was herself a force, urging Marcus to think of their children's future, advocating for stern action against the insurgents to curtail their seditious intents. Yet illness kept her from their appointed meeting in Formiae, and instead she shared insights and expressed her fears through the written word. Meanwhile, Cassius scrambled for support, finding none from the likes of Herod, who summarily dismissed the traitor's proposals with a curt reply. But fate's wheels turned swift. Dissident soldiers, once allies of the usurper Cassius, ended his life a mere 3 months into his rebellion. News of Cassius's demise and the arrival of his head reached Marcus, who remained in Formia, a twisted gift he neither desired nor celebrated. His response to Faustina carried the weight of his ideals. Mercy would be his mantle. In an unprecedented act, he spared Cassius's family, appealing to the Senate to shun bloodshed and embrace forgiveness. To Marcus, clemency was the pillar upon which the love of nations could rest, a legacy he longed to bestow upon Rome. Yet his kindness drew consternation from some, prompting questions about his leniency to a man who would have shown none in return. But Marcus, grounded in his faith in the divine and a life of virtue, remained unfazed, confident that his deeds insulated him against such desolate fates. His words to the Senate echoed through the halls of history. Pardon those who erred, honor the fallen as justly slain, protect the innocent. A silent promise that each action was a brushstroke on the canvas of his governance, a portrait of compassion against the backdrop of power. Beyond mere words, Marcus's deeds sang harmonies of humanitarianism, scorching the correspondence of Cassius without scrutiny to spare unnecessary suspicions and ensuring his friend Mardius Verus kept others safe from harm. In the shadow of these high dramas came the death of Faustina near Mount Taurus. The emperor's grief was matched only by his commitment to principle. When the Senate's pretense of support led them back to vindictiveness, he stayed their swift descent into cruelty with a plea for life over vengeance. As peace slid once more from the empire's grasp, renewed conflict in the north summoned the aged Marcus to don the armor of leadership yet again. Before departing, he offered wisdom like a philosophical mantle to the Senate, a testament to his dedication to both governance and enlightenment. In the final throes of life, confronting the boundaries of mortality, Marcus Aurelius remained the teacher, the mentor. He entrusted his officers with the care of his young and inexperienced son, his legacy and his concern. His guiding principles were clear. A ruler's reign is safe and enduring only when the people's hearts are won not by fear but by benevolence. When death claimed Marcus, it took from the world not just an emperor but an epoch. Mourned by many, loved by more, he was the true incarnation of a philosopher king, leaving behind meditations that served as his immortal extension. So we soar above the fragility of human condition with Marcus's reflections, contemplating how a man vested with the utmost power chose the path of utmost restraint, and how his reign became a testament to the enduring power of virtue, mercy, and wisdom. As we delve into segment 5 of part 1 from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, we find ourselves confronting the spiritual intersection of various beliefs, the mistaken sanctification of flawed individuals, and the complexity of religious persecution. Aurelius examines the similarities and differences in worship between pagans and Christians through centuries, noting an interesting convergence. Both groups venerated remarkable figures, though their pantheons were distinct. While acknowledging some beings may have a role as ministering spirits, he critiques the converse practices of deifying those whose virtues may not have been as sterling as once believed. He suggests that both Verus and Faustina, for instance, may have been perceived by him with undue reverence, a reflection of his propensity for seeing the good in others, despite their possible hidden vices. In his musings, Aurelius addresses criticisms about persecuting Christians, claiming no direct orders from him, hence suggesting his level of involvement was more about failing to investigate their plight rather than active oppression. This neglect, while significant, is somewhat tempered by the fact that he was preoccupied with numerous duties as emperor. Moreover, the misinformation spread by zealous pagan authorities could have easily influenced his perception of Christians, painting them as malefactors and rebels, which is often the case in situations where the orthodoxy feels threatened. Aurelius proposes an ironic consideration. Christian factions holding core similarities should be less inclined to persecute one another over minor divergences in doctrine. The greater the similarity, the more heinous it is to resort to persecution over trivial theological disagreements. These insights beg us to reflect on the nature of religious conflict and the pettiness that fuels such divisions. The passage also touches upon the idea that true virtue and piety are not solely the province of Christians. Mentioning Socrates, Plato, and noting their contributions to moral philosophy, Aurelius invokes the belief that the sanctifying grace of God could transcend religious boundaries. This inclusive view suggests that even those unaware of Christ's role could lead lives graced by divine influence. In a candid admission, Aurelius acknowledges his own lack of exploration into Christianity, but this is moderated by recognition of the intense pressures and responsibilities of his station, coupled with the daunting power of his pre-existing philosophical beliefs. In conclusion, this segment is a profound contemplation on interreligious dynamics, the multifaceted nature of piety, and a plea for a universal understanding of virtue. Aurelius calls for compassion and advocates a broader spiritual inclusivity, challenging the narrow confines of religious exclusivity. His meditations serve as a timeless reminder that the pursuit of goodness need not be constrained by the labels we assign to our beliefs. Imagine drawing wisdom from the most personal reflections of a Roman emperor, delving into the profound relationships and lessons that shape the core of his being. As we explore segment 6 of part 1 from the timeless passages of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, we unravel the threads of influence that crafted his Stoic philosophy. Through the guidance of Rusticus, Aurelius learned to temper his nature, staying clear of the empty ambitions of sophists, maintaining earnest simplicity over pretense. From Apollonius he acquired the true meaning of freedom, adhering to the principles of justice and reason, regardless of life's trials. This resilience was compounded by his experience with Sextus, who exemplified a loving family life aligned with nature's design, tempering passion with gentle disposition. Alexander the Critic served as a model of tolerance, subtly guiding Aurelius in the art of correcting with kindness rather than scorn. And in the political intrigues surrounding power, Fronto alerted him to the prevalence of envy and pretense, encouraging a sincere approach to personal relations. From his brother Severus, Aurelius absorbed the love for justice and chains of interconnected philosophy that supported a republic founded on equity and the values of a benevolent monarch, instilling within him the depth of unfaltering study and the spirit of generosity. Claudius Maximus taught the emperor the mastery over self, bringing emotional fortitude to the forefront in the face of adversity. Meanwhile, his father's memory brought forth values of moderation, forethought, and an undeterred sense of justice, with an effortless dignity that stood independent of vanity or ornamentation. Through all these influences, Aurelius recognized the abundant graces of life. Mentors, health, and the capacity for rational thought were areas where he acknowledged the divine favor. This segment of Meditations, far from an irrelevant misstep, is the monument to Aurelius' intellectual lineage, depicting a vast mosaic of characters whose attributes and teachings became the fortress of his philosophical kingdom. Watch how these influences acted as the architects of his soul, each contributing a unique stone to the robust structure of his inner citadel. From them, the importance of self-restraint, the love of family and truth, the balance between patience and directness, and the avoidance of vanity and flattery shaped the emperor into a leader whose image was the very embodiment of wisdom and virtue. In this narrative, we find ourselves not simply reading about the past. We are witnessing the birth of principles and values that stand, perhaps now more than ever, as a beacon of hope against the tumult of existence. Let these reflections guide us as they did Aurelius, towards a life of purpose, steadfastness, and tranquility in accordance with nature's grand design. Imagine waking up each day, knowing that you might encounter the most challenging of human characteristics: ungratefulness, insolence, envy. This is the reality Marcus Aurelius prepares himself for. Rather than seeing these traits as a personal affront, he sees them as arising from others' misunderstanding of good and evil. Just think about it. He considers people as inherently related, not by blood, but by a shared divine intelligence. And it's this realization that arms him against becoming a victim of anger or hatred. Now let's dive deeper. Aurelius breaks down existence into three components: the body, the life force, and the governing mind. He emphasizes age as a reminder not to let the mind be dominated by negative passions and to accept the flow of fate without fear. It's like he's telling us that we're not just flesh and bones. We're part of a grand cosmic design that doesn't make mistakes. His perspective is breathtaking. Everything's under the wise guidance of providence, even what we chalk up to mere fortune. He wants us to realize we're a piece of the universe, and nothing external can force us to act against the harmony of this whole. But here's the kicker. Antoninus stresses a sense of urgency. He's aware that his time, our time, is finite. This isn't a practice run. We need to live like the clock could stop at any moment, aligning every deed with dignity and accord with nature. And he's practical too. Rather than obsessing over reading every book or the inner thoughts of others, he tells us the secret is to watch over and harmonize our own souls. It's about self-focus, alignment with nature, and a sense that to act well now is all that's needed for a life well lived. Remember, according to Aurelius, every life is just a moment. The past, the present, the future, they're all the same in death's eyes. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, the past or future, why not cherish what is? That instant of life you're living right now is really all anyone has. And so we wrap up this part, heartened by the thought that no one can deprive us of what we don't actually possess, which is the trappings of time beyond the very moment we are in. Aurelius is a master of the inner fortress, teaching us that neither life's longest stretch nor its shortest have different effects. What matters is how we inhabit the now, keep our rationality clear, and our inner divinity untouched by follies. Imagine contemplating life through the eyes of a Stoic emperor, one who sees the vastness of eternity and recognizes the fleeting nature of human experience. This is the world of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who mused on life, death, and virtue in his personal writings, which have traversed time to arrive at our modern-day scrutiny. In the segment before us, Aurelius sheds light on the nature of existence and the practices of the soul. He begins with a reflection that underlines a startling truth. Whether one lives a century or faces eternity, the loss at death is equivalent. Why? Because we are ultimately only deprived of the present moment, which is what we actually possess. All else is beyond our grasp, and we cannot lose what we have never owned. Next, Aurelius ponders on the idea that our discontents are self-afflicted wounds. The soul inflicts harm upon itself when it rebels against the nature of the universe, when it grows angry at others with harmful intent, when it's overrun by pleasure or pain, and when it is dishonest or fails to act with intention towards a meaningful goal. Instead, we should aim for our actions to be in harmony with the universe, acting as citizens of a grand, interconnected city. The brevity of life is a recurring theme, likened to a mere point in the continuum of existence. Our senses, Aurelius observes, are not always reliable, and our physical forms inevitably decay. True solace and honor in life, he professes, come not from exterior admiration or material possessions, but from philosophy and the ability to meet death with equanimity, as simply a transformation of elements, which in itself is natural and should not be feared. Transitioning to Book 3, we encounter the stark reminder to hasten our progress, not just because death inches closer with each passing day, but also because the clarity of mind to make sound judgments can fade before life ends. This urgency extends to what we perceive as beauty. Aurelius suggests that even the unconventional or seemingly flawed aspects of nature have an inherent attractiveness when seen as part of the greater whole. Employing examples from history and mythology, he reflects on the universal inevitability of death. No matter one's accomplishments or intellect, mortality is the grand equalizer. He calls for attentiveness to one's own life, rather than dwelling on the matters of others, which disperses the focus necessary for self-governance and virtue. Embrace instead the connection to divinity within us, shunning the distractions and superficial pursuits that can dominate existence. Lastly, Marcus Aurelius urges a consistency of character, to act without reluctance or insincerity, and to embody the values of justice, truth, temperance, and fortitude above all else. In his view, no other pursuit or pleasure should distract us from these virtues, which align us with the rational and social nature of our beings. In summary, we're guided through a contemplative journey wherein our pursuits, attachments, and fears are examined. Marcus Aurelius counsels us to find harmony in the universe's natural course, to live with purpose and virtue, and to cherish the innate reason and social responsibility woven into our existence. It's a call to recognize the transitory nature of life, and yet to act with the dignity and virtue befitting our rational nature, turning every moment into a reflection of our commitment to the greater cosmic order. Imagine shaping your mind into your most powerful asset, a fortress impervious to the chaos of life. That's where we dive in today, exploring the wisdom of the great emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius in his timeless work, Meditations. In segment 9, Marcus urges us to cultivate our judgment with utmost care. Why? Because everything depends on a strong, rational, and unbiased mind. Our natural design, he argues, steels us against hasty decisions, nudging us toward kindness to others and reverence for the higher powers. Moving into segment 10, he reminds us to focus on the present. After all, our life's span is but a brief flicker, with fame being a transient whisper passed down by mortals, all of whom will eventually be forgotten. Sounds sobering, right? Yet it's liberating, steering us away from the futile pursuit of approval and recognition. In segment 11, Aurelius counsels a precise method to cut through life's appearances. Define and dissect the nature of things, name them truly, and reflect on their purpose within the universe. This practice, he assures, breeds clarity and inner strength. Segment 12 then builds on this by asserting that fulfilling our duties in the here and now, without distractions and with a pure heart, is our passport to happiness. Your virtue, Marcus says, is unassailable if guided by proper reasoning. But how do we maintain this in the face of life's complexities? Segment 13 offers us a toolkit of maxims, always ready at our disposal, connecting human and divine elements, ensuring we don't lose our way. Segments 14 and 15 nudge us away from procrastination and towards self-improvement, emphasizing the earnestness of truly understanding actions like to steal or to be at peace. These aren't just for the eyes, but for deeper comprehension. Then, in what I find particularly compelling, in segment 16, we are presented with the divisions of our being, the body, the animal soul, and the intellectual part. It's the latter, our rational thought and our virtue, that distinguishes us from animals. It also encourages us to live in accord with it, untouched by petty misjudgments or the transient ripples of fame. Now, the next few segments will delve deeper into these insights, building upon the threads we've gathered here. Remember, we're journeying through a comprehensive meditation, where each stitch is necessary for the grand tapestry of Aurelius's philosophy. Let's continue to weave together the wisdom of this great Stoic emperor, bearing always in mind how our mental faculties are our greatest allies in the ceaseless flow of life's river.